Hello everyone, I'm Tommy and welcome to Studio Sense. You know, it's really tough times that we're living in, not gonna lie. It's really tough for a lot of people who are under budget constraints. And if you're a lover of fine fragrances, that makes it tough sometimes because really good fragrances just aren't that cheap anymore. However, oftentimes there are a little bit cheaper alternatives to some pre-existing designer and niche fragrances out there. So when we return, we're gonna compare these 8 that are cheap alternatives to the more expensive, that and more, so stay tuned. Welcome back everyone. So today we're talking about cheaper alternatives to more expensive designer and niche fragrances. These aren't intended to smell exactly like the actual fragrance we're referencing, but they're supposed to be similar to or have that same vibe or kind of carry some similarities. And oftentimes, as you'll notice, a lot of them carry almost the identical notes that are in the actual original. Our number 1 fragrance is a Chanel fragrance, and as soon as you say Chanel, you know it's not going to be cheap, and that is Bleu de Chanel. Now there are a bazillion blue fragrances out there that you could say are similar. However, the one that I'm going to recommend is probably obvious to you, maybe not if you've never thought about it, but the one that I would recommend over Bleu de Chanel, because this fragrance here is going to be right around $97 for a 3.4 or 100 ml bottle. Like Chanel doesn't do discounts typically, so it's going to run right around generally $100 for a 100 ml bottle. Versace Dylan Blue makes a really nice alternative to Bleu de Chanel. If you compare note for note, it's extremely similar. They both have frankincense, they both have some of the other darker or richer notes, and where one has something that might be like slightly sweet like cardamom, the other will have tonka bean. So this one is a relatively simple scent profile. There's a ton of notes in Versace Dylan Blue. This one on the dry down is a little bit more smoky and a little bit less sea or aquatic oriented. Surprisingly nice match and very inexpensive match to Bleu de Chanel. So you're looking at $100 versus $53. Versace Dylan Blue. Next up, we have a fragrance that's not supremely expensive, so you might wonder why I have it in this list. Well, again, anything that might save you some money and offer you an alternative. So this is Prada L'Homme. Absolutely wonderful, very soft. A lot of people say it's like freshly laundered clothes or fabric softener or luxury hotel soap. So what would be a stand-in of a fragrance that costs about $63? I would recommend as a cheaper alternative that carries pretty much the same vibe would be Mont Blanc Individuel. Individuel is a discontinued fragrance, but there's still quite a few out there. Now this is a 100 ml bottle and this is a 75 ml bottle. That's all that they make it in, but there is quite drastic of a difference in price. This is $63 for 100 ml. This one is $22 and you're getting a discontinued fragrance. This one has a slight chocolatey raspberry hint to it. This one does not have it, but they both have that same very freshly laundered clothing, fabric softener vibe to them. Both very nice sillage, very nice longevity. This next fragrance is also a blue fragrance, similar to Bleu de Chanel, so it's year-round. You can wear it in any season. Very fresh, youthful, and invigorating. It is from Yves Saint Laurent, and it is Ylvly. Ylvly or Ylvly Intense. It's a wonderful fragrance. Right now it's running about $103 for a 100 ml bottle. A really nice alternative that I actually featured recently from Abercrombie & Fitch that smells surprisingly like Ylvly is Abercrombie & Fitch First Instinct Together. It's also a 100 ml bottle. Now I actually kind of lucked out. I found this at a rack store for $24.99. You probably can't find that now online, at least for that price. So if you do find it at a rack store, grab it up. I would say check your rack stores frequently to find this. So you might see it in there now. You might see it in there in the near future. You never know. The 50 ml bottle is running around $48. Still, so less than half of this, and the smell is surprisingly similar. And again, note for note, when you compare it, they have so many very similar notes: orange blossom, tonka bean, cardamom. Now this is an eau de parfum, this is an eau de toilette, but very similar performance. Extremely pleasant alternative to a more expensive Ylvly. Our next fragrance that we're featuring a cheaper alternative to isn't that expensive itself, and that is Alfred Dunhill's Icon. Icon is a very masculine, aromatic, neroli based fragrance for men, and it's not that expensive to begin with, so if you want to just get this, you're perfectly fine in having it. But I did want to make you aware that there is an extremely inexpensive alternative from Arlen of Paris, and it's called Emerge. Now there's Emerge Noir, and this is just the one that's called Emerge. For whatever reason, this is a lot more online than it is in department stores or rack stores. I happened to find this at TJ Maxx for 12 bucks. They had a ton of them there too. So if you can find it at a rack store, that's why I recommend getting it. The only difference between these two is the neroli in Icon is much more natural smelling and a little bit dirty due to the additional ingredients. This does have like leather accord. It's got some very similar accords that are also in Icon, but it's a lot cleaner smelling of a neroli, likely due to it being an aroma chemical equivalent to neroli. But it did surprise me because it lasts forever. This neroli is a super strong, it projects really well off the body and it lasts and lasts. It is an eau de parfum concentration as well, but $12 against 46 bucks is a significant savings if you can find it for that at a rack store. But again, if you want to order it online, you're not really saving but, you know, probably $10 or so. So I would say just go ahead and get Icon. But if you can find it, great neroli alternative. Next up is one of my favorite gourmand fragrances from Emporio Armani, and it is Stronger With You Intensely. It's a toffee-based fragrance that if you like sweet but masculine men's fragrances, similar to like Uomo Signature, Salvatore Ferragamo's Uomo Signature, Stronger With You Intensely, Stronger With You, such a great fragrance, but it is about 100 bucks, so it doesn't look like it's a 100 ml bottle, but it actually is. But what might be a cheaper alternative to something like this that doesn't smell exactly like it, but is still within the same vein or wheelhouse? That would be Azzaro Solarissimo Favignana. Favignana showed up in discounters about 2 or 3 months ago and then sold out, and it's really hard to find in discounters right now. Mine actually came from Russia, believe it or not, but I did put a link in the description below where you could actually purchase one. But what they'll do is they'll produce more and then ship it to the US, and you'll likely find this in discounters in a few months. Keep eyeing discounters for when this shows up again, but you can find it still on eBay, and if you want to purchase it on eBay, you're still going to find a significant savings when compared to Stronger With You Intensely. 100 bucks versus 30 or 40 bucks, definitely a great savings and still smells wonderful. Primarily this has like a coffee and a toffee base to it. This has tobacco, candied lemon, sage, rum, absolute, and Chinese tune or cedar. And this is a very woody, sweet, candy-like base to it, so it's almost gourmand. This dries down a little bit warmer, a little bit more salty than does this. So there are some differences in the dry down, but during the interim, you're getting something very similar in the same vein. Very enjoyable. This actually is my favorite out of the Solarissimo line, which if you know anything about the Solarissimo line, there are 3 fragrances. There's Maritimo and Lavanzo, I think, and then Favignana, my favorite. Grapefruit, pimento, black pepper, cumin, cinnamon, saffron, tobacco, amber, cistus, and vanilla. All of those notes go into making one of my most favorite fragrances of all time for fall and winter time, but primarily fall, and that is a Viktor and Rolf Spice Bomb Extreme. You already know that I really like this fragrance and I highly recommend it, but it is slightly pricey. So right now this is running this thing is going to drive me crazy, so sorry about that. Let me just take it off. So if this explodes, you know why I took the pin off. Anyway, so this is, yeah, it's kind of pricey. It's definitely worth it because they use high quality ingredients, and that becomes obvious once you spray this on your skin, but still 130 bucks is a lot to come up with all at once. So is there a cheaper alternative? Absolutely. In Azzaro Wanted by Night. Azzaro Wanted by Night doesn't have the in-your-face spice pop that this does, but it is extremely similar in the mid and specifically in the dry down. So they are both within the same vein, within the same, I hate always using that term wheelhouse, but it's a good term when you're referencing fragrances that are of the same ilk. So very much similar and funny actually, the bottle size and shape is also kind of similar. They're both referencing violent tools of destruction. So this is a grenade, right? And this is the chamber of a Colt 45. Kind of interesting that they're both very similar in terms of instruments of destruction or instruments of war or violence, but they are amazing in terms of super strong. These are heavy hitters, and they've both been in lists of mine before for how good the quality is. So if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, right now you can get Wanted by Night for about 48 bucks for a 3.4 or 100 ml bottle. So 48 bucks, 130 drastic difference in price, but you're getting something of almost equal quality. So amazing, amazing fragrance. Both of them are. They're both worth owning, but again, if you want something similar to Spice Bomb Extreme, I would recommend a Zara Wanted by Night. Our next fragrance is the niche fragrance that I was talking about. It is a Parfums de Marly fragrance called Herod. Herod is a really, really nice, rich, slightly cherry, vanilla, honey, tobacco fragrance. And if that's something that you really enjoy wearing, especially in cooler weather, fall and in winter, then you'll be interested in the alternative. Now, there are a ton of alternatives. I mean, you can probably list off the top of your head a ton of alternatives to this very expensive niche fragrance, and you would likely be right in doing so. For example, let's just say Terry Mugler's Pure Havane, or Pure Havane, however you want to say that. That is a really, really close estimate to Herod and is equally enjoyable. In fact, some people say it's even better than Herod. I'm not jumping on that bandwagon, but it is a nice alternative. But even something cheaper than that, because I'm all about economy, and that's what this list is about, is economy and saving money. There is a product made by Zara. It is from their tobacco collection, and it is called Rich, Warm, and Addictive. And it is very, very reminiscent of Parfums de Marly's Herod. But it's kind of ridiculous when you consider the price. Now this, if you get it from the PDM website, you're going to pay about 230 bucks. I believe that's actually approximately what you'll pay at discounters too. There's not a ton of discounts off PDM products, so 230 bucks, let's say you find that at a great discount and you get it for less than 200. Still, $19.90 from the Zara website. Primarily what you're getting is tobacco, cherry, vanilla. This does not have the cherry note in it, but it does have the tobacco, it's got the vanilla, it's got very warm, like a bourbon in it as well. The performance is actually pretty good. Now that I used to say that the performance of this was bad, but I did some comparisons, and I think that that I was just going anosmic to it because I was spraying too much on. So just be careful of overspraying because you might feel the same way, but it actually does perform really well, specifically for a $20 fragrance. $20, 230 bucks, nice alternative to Parfums de Marly's Herod. Our last fragrance comparison to a cheaper alternative comes from a fragrance that I really, really love, and I definitely think it's worth owning, but if you find yourself under budgetary constraints and you want something similar to it, the fragrance I'm referring to is Armani, from Giorgio Armani, Armani Code Absolu. Code Absolu is a wonderful, cool weather fragrance that is very aromatic, it's very warm, it's very spicy, has a really nice, realistic, refreshing apple note, but a really good alternative that kind of came out of nowhere and surprised me, and likely surprised others when they did a comparison, was from the house Guess, and it is Guess Seductive Noir. Guess Pour Homme Seductive Noir. Now, this bottle is an odd size. It's, I think, approximately 110 mil. So you do get about 10 more mil, but the fragrance is running around 97 bucks, even on a discounter site. So it's just under 100 bucks. This fragrance for a 100 mil bottle is $18. So it's under 20 bucks. And you would be surprised at the actual performance out of Guess Seductive Noir. I've done some comparisons between the two and they're almost neck and neck. Of course, this beats it out, no question there. But for 100 bucks, it should really, really beat it out. But it doesn't soundly whip this tail. It really doesn't. It surprises me just how good this is. And there's a note, if you did a note by note comparison, they're very, very similar with few differences. So if you really like Code Absolu, you got your hands on a sample, but you don't own a bottle and you would like to own something very similar, but you don't have the money, but you got an extra 20 bucks in your pocket, burn it on Guess Seductive Noir. I guarantee you, you won't be disappointed. Well guys, that's it for my list of 8 fragrances that have a cheaper alternative that themselves are relatively expensive. Now, there are a couple in there like Icon or Prada L'Homme that you might as well just go ahead and get, you know, the actual fragrance itself, but there do exist alternatives, and if you don't want to purchase those, you can save a significant amount of money by getting the alternative. If you've tried any of these, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out my video today. As always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you next time.